VOD and just tuning in now. But just give me a minute, I'm just going to advertise this stream in a few places, see if anybody wants to join in. So, I guess I should tweet about this. Dear Noxies, I don't know how to pronounce that, but welcome to the stream, you might be the first one. It's quite nice. It is good afternoon for me, I'm in the UK, so it's just coming on 4 PM. Lovely time for some game dev. And now I'm getting all the abuse in my Discord, which is fine. So yeah, good morning, good afternoon. I'm going to tweet about this too, if you just give me a minute. Okay, what's my channel's URL? There we go. Australia, very nice. I've got some family in Australia. Half brother. So yeah, it's always a crazy time there compared to here. Right, I think that's everywhere in the world notified about this stream. I should have one of those fancy stream starting soon messages. And thank you for following, but we're not seeing the alert box because I don't have a clue what I'm doing here. There we go. So just John Italia, thank you for following. And acid in my fridge. Get to go through the nice notifications that I've got here. Well, this is already my most popular and successful stream. Okay, so I'm Zinj. This is King Under the Mountain. This is a very noisy follower. ScaleX27. Bit of dancing Zemo there for you. We just got some lo-fi hip-hop in the background, which isn't normally my kind of thing, but I think it goes well with this stream. Okay, so I'm Zinj. I'm basically the guy making King Under the Mountain. I can't quite say it's a one-man effort because there's a whole bunch of really talented artists doing the artwork, music and sound effects, but basically everything else is me. So, and it is just my free time for the moment, so it's incredibly slow progress, which I can only apologise for. It's just when I have a bit of time like now that I can try and do some more. We're still working on Alpha 5. At the end of Alpha 10, we're going to launch on Steam. Hopefully that brings in enough revenue for me to work in it full time, which would be incredible, because, you know, at the moment it's I don't know, like a week's work takes a couple of months, the sort of speed I'm going. So if we were full time, we'd just absolutely blast through what I'm doing. But we need to get to Steam first, I think. The game's got about 20,000 wish lists, which I'm probably not supposed to tell you, but that's amazing news, I think. Blue Husky, thanks for following. I'm going to have to do that all the way through now, aren't I? Well, that's nice, yeah. Thanks for everyone who's joining. Where was I? So yeah, we'll go to Steam eventually, and when we do get Steam, I do think I'll be able to really focus on the game and make lots and lots of progress. So it's just the kind of slog until that point to get there. So, and also, sorry, I've not really been around the last couple of months, had a lot of other things on, but back into it now. So the last dev update, which was January, which is the longest that I've had a gap for, and I feel terrible about that. I was talking about the particle effects system I'm putting in place. So that's, well, just visual effects that have lots of little sprites that sort of act on their own rules. And I'm terrible to explain this, but just add some more visual niceness to the game, some juice, as some people would call it. I just have a few more of those to finish off. So if I just check my notes over here, the one that I want to do next is I want a whole bunch of chips to fly out of the ore crusher when you've got some ore out of the mountain. Oh, I've lost my stream now. Let me launch the game actually, and I'll show what I'm about to try and do. So I keep it windowed when I'm working on the game. It just helps to swap between all the stuff that I'm doing. I've got a really basic settlement here. Everything's outdoors. Before very long, in fact, as part of this alpha, I think, or Alpha 6, we're going to introduce roofing and rain, so you need to stay indoors for some things. There'll be reasons to have rooms properly enclosed in walls and doors, so you can't just have a mess like this out in the middle of nowhere and it'd be fine. But what I'm going to try and do next is this ore crushing station here. When someone's using it, you stick a bunch of raw ore like this. Well, that's coal, but let's mine some more out so I can actually make use of it. There's some bauxite over here, but that's for aluminium, which isn't actually implemented, so you can't use that yet. So all the way over here, there's some galena ore for silver. So let's get a bunch of that. Quite close to causing a cave in there. Let's not worry about that. So the moment the dwarves come and just dump it into this thing, stare at it for a bit, and then magically you have some processed ore that you can then use in the smelter. It's not even called the smelter, is it? I call it the smelter. It's the bloomery furnace. And the particle effects let me add stuff to actually see stuff's happening. In fact, I can show off some of the ones that nobody else will have seen yet. So let's do that. Let's just wait till the next day. And we can see some ones already implemented, which I will be releasing as soon as I finish the list. So one of the main ones is, well, it's these leaves that are falling off trees that I did tweet about. That's nice. I've always wanted those for like years since I first started the game. But when you come to chop a tree, bits of the bark flies off, and when it lands, there's a whole like explosion of leaves and chips that fly everywhere. But I don't know where my woodcutters are, or what they're doing, or why nobody is cutting down these trees. I just have the one, and he's having a drink. Okay, fine. Oh, yeah, and he's also working here. Okay, let's get some more. Get some more woodcutters. Who's not too busy? You. Okay. He also needs a drink. He's going for a pickaxe because he's a miner. That was not well planned. Okay, you are also a woodcutter. No, that's the same one. Oh, this is disaster. Okay, let's try you. So I do plan to do a lot, well, with everything in the game, but the professions will be more of a thing. They'll have like skill levels to them, and it won't just be a case of just picking people to do random jobs all the time. You'll like increase in proficiency as you work in a profession, and that might unlock stuff like some kind of progression system is the main thing I think the game's lacking for a proper release. I want someone to cut down some trees. Maybe we won't get to see it just yet. It's probably that there's not enough axes available. Okay, tell you what, let's just stop you cutting up some planks for a bit. Well, you might have seen there was some particles flying around. Okay, that's gone. I might add something for the the deconstruction. In fact, let's do that as well today. Okay, so we spent a whole day and didn't achieve anything. Is somebody going to take this axe? You. No. But this is very useful, right? They're going to go and crush some ore, and the ore's already in there. And this is a bug, which is going to fix at this point. So there's a bunch of things that I plan to do for Alpha 5, and one of them is there is this bug that must have been introduced more recently, that some like crafting recipes can mix up kinds of ore, which isn't supposed to happen. So when she produces this ore, it's going to come out as either galena or coal, of all of one kind, which just isn't right at all. So seeing as we're about to crush some ore, let's work on that particle effect. So we've got a question: will there be more emotions, feelings, thoughts? Yes, very much so. There'll definitely be like thoughts of stuff that's happening. It won't just be the happiness. There'll be some sort of social aspect to what's going on. Developing friendships, families, clans, even as one side. And I think the thoughts would be quite useful to use as a kind of tutorial for players. And yes, I am trying to leverage what makes Dwarf Fortress amazing, without sort of going down the rabbit hole of trying to simulate the entire world, because nobody's going to catch up to Tarn Adams doing that. So I'm just trying to focus on kind of what makes the Dwarf, the Fortress mode in that game work so well, a bunch of other games too. Right. Particle effects. This thing. Okay. And something went wrong, which I need to look into. You'll get to see all the nitty-gritty, horrible details of things that aren't quite working behind the scenes. Which is fine, that's what these streams are about. Okay, so particle effects. The game uses a framework called libgdx, which is a Java-based game development library. And it has its own particle effect system that I'm using. So they provide this jar, or this application, to create particle effects out of. I think this is in my January dev update. So like in this example, there's just one particle that's like a little circle that's lots and lots and lots of here, to produce this sort of flame effect with a whole bunch of settings, which I'll probably get into a little bit. And the fact that they're adding additive sort of adds the colour together, so without that you see it's just a bunch of light red shapes, but with that one switched on it gives it a nice fire effect, so that's nice. So I want something for the ore crusher. I kind of want like a constant stream of chips of bits of ore flying out of the top of it. Would be quite good. So why not? Let's try and create that effect right now. So instead of that shape, I'll have one of my own. So just some sprites. They're over here. They're just tiny little shapes really. They don't do much. Maybe these pebbles. So these pebbles fly off when you're mining now. And they might be a bit large for this, and you can kind of ignore how it looks for a moment. So these settings, it's going to randomly use both of these pebble shapes, but you can't really see that going on here. Let me turn down the number of particles you see at a time. In fact, let's go for one at a time. There you go. One of those little sprites just flying upwards. Let's change the colour. Now the colour is going to be set by the game instead. Lots and lots of stuff gets recoloured by the game engine, and the particle effect's one of them. But for an example here, you can now see there's a grey rock sort of floating upwards. So that's a start. I just need to mess around with these effects to get a sort of constant stream of them flying out of the top of something is what I'm going for. Okay, so first it's how long they want to live for. And this is a range here in milliseconds. So if they live between, like, let's say 700 and 1200 milliseconds. And then over time, they tail off a bit and disappear. But within this range, if that makes sense. And this is how quickly they are emitted from the sensor. So let's turn it up a little bit. Let's have 6 at a time for now. But let's 6. A few more. Let's have 8. But let's emit them a lot slower, so they just sort of fire out over time. So how many per second? 2? Maybe? Maybe 3. It's gonna be a bit faster than this. Okay. Now this angle here is the angle they are emitted at from the points that they come out of in the center here. And the angle that they go to over time is this sort of bar chart. So if I sort of set this to just 90, they'll just go straight up. Okay, and so I kind of want them to sort of fire out in a sort of cone upwards. So if we say between 50 degrees and 130 degrees. Sort of getting there. I think they're a bit big for what I wanted though. So I'm going to tone down the particle size. Half that? Or a bit less, of 12. Yeah, that's kind of what I wanted. Actually, let's give it a range of between 9 and 13. Okay, sort of getting towards what I want to do. So this velocity is the speed that they fired out at. So as I'm going through all of this particle editor is just part of libgdx, and it's something you can download, but I'm actually going to include it in the game. And this and almost everything else in the game is just driven through data files like this instead of the code. This produces a file that basically just keeps all these settings. The idea is that people will be able to just come in and drop their own in. That's mods. That's modding the game. So you'll be able to come in and replace any of the ones that are in the game, or add new ones, or create your own and tell it to use those in certain situations. That's kind of the idea. Okay, so the speed. The world units per second doesn't mean too much in this case, but it's just a number. So the 30 seems pretty slow. The 300, which are the faster ones, I guess, feels about right. So let's bump that up a bit. That's a bit more like what I wanted now. And I want gravity to affect them. So over time, beginning with not much, and then over time I want gravity to have an effect on these particles. So I need to experiment with this a little bit. Oh no, they're absolutely flying to the sky. The gravity is the way around. Let's make that negative. There we go. Right, that's pretty much what I was after from this effect. So pretty simple. Oh, let's have them spin around as well a little bit. So we've got rotation we can have, and this is how much rotate by over time from the low amount here to the high amount here. So if they start off as 0 and they rotate up to, let's say, between 180 and 360, we'll do a little rotation around a little bit. Yeah, that looks alright. Maybe a bit more. Maybe let's go, say, 360 up to 480. Yeah, I'm kind of happy with that. The additive is about the blending of the colour. That doesn't matter. But what I do want is that this is a continuous effect that will just constantly be firing out this thing until we tell the particle effect to stop. And I think that'll do for now. So I'll save that as something. So I'm going to drop everything that I create into this base directory. This is like the base mod of the game. You've got the game structure, you can kind of ignore the other stuff because that's just for the development version. But when you download the game, it has this mods directory. It's got the base, the community translations, this font. And the idea is you can add other fonts here, mods here, and there'll be a sort of Steam Workshop type integration, but that'll come quite a bit later. But mods are a thing. You can create your own mods at this point. Anything that's in the data files you could create your own version of, and it should sort of work. It's not very well documented yet, so if you're interested, just drop into the Discord channel. I'll happily explain what people can do with whatever it is they're interested in doing at the moment. But in most cases, many game features aren't implemented yet, and people want to do stuff like add new races to the game, but that doesn't really make sense until the game has a concept of multiple races other than dwarves. So you can't quite do that yet, but you could certainly add more of anything that's already in the game. So more professions, more jobs, more trees and items and resources, that kind of thing. Or in this case, more particle effects. So there's this new particles directory, and the libgdx directory has the file that's saved from the libgdx version of a particle effect. So let's call this, what is this? It's the ore crushing thing, so let's call it ore chips, I don't know. And by convention we're giving it a .p extension, but that doesn't really mean anything. Right, we have that effect. So that should appear over here somewhere. There it is. That's my ore chips. And then for the libgdx version, we have our own sort of wrapper around that to define it as a particle effect in the game. Almost everything in the game has a JSON file that describes it and defines it. So for particle effects, it's these JSON files. You can have actually any name for the file that you want. This is just to organize them a little bit. So I've started this furniture processing effects. So we have a new one of these. So I won't get into the format of JSON, but I can do another time. Create a new one of these. So it has to have a name, and this is the name that the game knows it by. And if you wanted to replace one of these, you can have a mod and give it the same name, and it would replace it. So let's call it all chips like that. And the particle file points it at the .p file. It doesn't matter about the directory path, it just drops all these into one place. The scale lets you resize it bigger or smaller depending on how it ends up looking in the game. There's some extra stuff going on, but what you're looking at here sort of maps to what it looks like at a reasonable sort of zoom in the game, so a lot of this will be trial and error. Right, is looping, say if this loops for a while, and this one does, so we'll say true. Now, is affected by lighting is an interesting one. You'll probably know if you've played the game at all, it's got a kind of interesting dynamic lighting system. And the same can apply to the particle effects. So for all the sprites in the game, there is a normal map for those sprites. So for the particle sprites here, we use the Pebble and Pebble 2. So they map to this Pebble normals and this Pebble 2 normals file. And because those exist, we can use it with the lighting engine. I guess I'll have to point people at an app to generate these. That's what I do. Use something called, what do I use? Sprite Delight. This thing that someone started on Kickstarter. It's a great little tool. I just use this to generate normal maps like this. Oh, I've been doing these wrong for a while. Maybe. Never mind. Anyway, yeah. This is to say, basically, if it is part of the game world, you want it to be affected by lighting. Or if it's like part of the UI, you don't want it to be affected by the lighting. Or some stuff doesn't get affected by lighting. Like sparks coming off the forge, which is one that's been added recently. But most of the rest do. Oh, it's not a string. Right, this uses target material. As tint color recolors it, depending on what the particle effect's for. So we want something to happen there because we want these chips of the ore to fly out to be the color of the ore that you're processing. And this offset from parent entity means where it's positioned. So everything in the game world that's not the terrain is an entity. So all the dwarves, the items, the furniture, the plants, they're all just what we call entities. And this will be attached to one of them. It'll be attached to the ore chipper furniture in this case. And this is how many like tiles to offset it from the center of that ore chipper by. So X 1.5 is to the right, like half a tile, so probably in the middle, hopefully. And Y 1.6, I did the wrong numbers there yesterday, didn't I? Yeah, if you saw my smelter with the spoke coming out the top, I wanted it a little bit more to the right, so that's that change there. Let's go for that. Okay, so that defines it in the game. I can now use a particle effect called ore chips. And to use particle effects, at the moment you can put them against a job type. So let's look at the job types. So for example, these are all the JSON definitions of the different job types in the game. I think it's all of them. So the main ones like mining, logging, now have this work on job particle effect names. It's an array, you have more than one, but they've all got one for now. That's just for some future compatibility in case you want multiple, which I think one of them nearly did, but they ended up not using it, so that's why. So you get chipping rock while you're mining, you get chipping wood while you're logging a tree, and so on through here. There's these digging ground ones that are a little bit different, that use the same P file for if you're digging like at your feet or next to you. So I could use something similar for this ore chipping effect, but I don't want to do that. So there's actually job types there, but it breaks down further for different crafting types, which is almost like a sub kind of job, that you've got like a crafting job, and then you have crafting types. These things, so carpentry, stonemasonry, so on. Ore crushing is the one that we're after here. So we could add this particle effect names to it, and that would work, and then we would have the particle effect sort of attached to the dwarf doing the job, which isn't quite right, because I wanted to pretend it's coming out of this machine. So I'm going to have to do some coding here. I'd like to add a way to let a piece of furniture define what particle effect to run while it's being used, which would be a new concept. So I'm going to figure that out on stream, hopefully. Okay. So again, almost everything is defined in JSON files to make everything moddable. The furniture is a kind of entity, so you find it under the entities directory here. I think this is a special table type. Yeah, the ore crusher. So in this furniture types JSON file, there'll be an entry in here, this one. This ore crushing station. So every furniture type has the name, the internationalization key for the translation, what text you see in the game, the category, which defines, there's like a higher level of different furniture for like if you can move through it or not. The layouts for how the positioning and placing them works. Everything gets a color. I think that just affects the color in the UI when you're picking it from the menu. The icon in the UI. The requirements where it needs to build the thing. So when you place one of these down, if it's metal, which is the only like version it can be, it needs 4 plates, 4 hoops, and 4 planks. And then the sort of special weird bits are done with these tags. So I've kind of borrowed the concept from Dwarf Fortress a little bit, though I've not actually dug into Dwarf Fortress's modding and how that works. But I've created these tags where there's like a tag name, a bunch of strings that could be anything, and that ties into some code somewhere. Tolocram, welcome, it's good to see you. So I'm just going through the furniture type here, trying to explain, or trying to figure out how I'm going to add a particle effect to something while it's being used. But also going over what we already have, which you might have seen because I think you might have looked at the modding a little bit. Maybe not. Oh, that's interesting. It's got an extra material type of cloth tag, which like invents a cloth material to be used as part of the furniture. Why is that there? I cannot remember. And this sort of special one to say that the plate gets mapped to colour 1 and the hoops get mapped to colour 2, which lets me use 2 different metal items as different colours. Otherwise, the colours sort of get mapped over depending on what material it is. So if you make a wooden table, it will be the colour of the wood that the table is made out of. Pretty straightforward. But I've introduced this tag to make them more complex. Now, the real special one is this crafting station behaviour. Furniture with this... Oh, Telegram, thank you for following. I do like that office gif there. Oh, it's a video. So a crafting station behavior tag says you're this crafting type. I can't remember what that is. I think that's a job type. And that's another job type for how you get the items there. I think it's just always hauling. It's just a way for me to pass it in. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to basically just completely invent a new thing to have a sort of what particle effect to use while this thing's being used, which is going to be tricky because the sort of crafting, the working on a job and the crafting is almost entirely separated from the furniture that's happening on to some extent, as far as the AI is concerned, which is something we're going to get into. But okay, let's just invent a new tag. So it's something like particle effects while in use, and we're going to give it whatever name of that particle effect I just created was. Ore chips? I can't remember. Ore chips. So as a modder, you would not initially be able to just invent a tag like this, but eventually you would once you can do code mods, which is the only kind of modding that's missing at the moment. The idea is you'll be able to write your own little bits of code which sit behind these tags and then do something when that tag is encountered. So the other day I added a tag to show a particle effect while something is processing, which is like the bakery or the smelter. The dwarf comes up, puts the materials in, sets it going, but then goes away, and there's this sort of time period while the it's still a crafting job or like a crafting recipe that's happening. There's like a set amount of time it just waits for, and there's a tag I created. I can't remember what it's called, so let's go and find out. So what was that? That was the Blue Maria furnace. Here we go. So I created this particle effects while processing. Oh god, look at that! I've named it somewhat similar. That's convenient. With this smoking particle effect that you might have seen on Twitter yesterday. So I basically want to copy some of the code that I've done for this. So behind that, there will be a particle effects while processing tag class. Here we go. I'm just going to copy this for now, but make it work for new tag. So what was that? Particle effects while being used? I can never remember what I've put. While in use. Okay. And then you'll be able to use both of these tags together on something, which would be nice. Okay, so this get tag name needs to map to whatever this string is here. So that. There's a little sort of validation step to say if this thing is valid. This getArgs is the sort of strings that are passed in to the tag here. So for every argument, it checks that there is a particle effect with that name. Otherwise, it's going to log out an error and then not use the tag. So that should be fine as is. But now I really need to put some thought into how this is at all going to work. And dig into the UI, I mean the AI, a little bit. Okay. So the AI for the dwarves worked on a concept of actions that you might have seen on a very old dev update somewhere. And the actions work as part of a goal. I basically ripped this off from a very interesting game called Starmancer, I think. Let's have a look. Yeah, Starmancer. They've got a fantastic sort of 3D pixel art style. It's a similar sort of game to this again, with a sort of space-based colony kind of thing. And they had a dev blog on how they did their AI, and I sort of adapted it what I wanted in this. So, for example, there's a work on job goal defined in JSON. There's a bunch of stuff that we had to say when it's used, but the more interesting bit is it defines all these actions and the relationship between them. So you start off with this select job action, and then if you succeed at that action, you get these actions. You equip an item for the job, if there is one, might not apply, and then you go to the location. When you go to the location, if that succeeds, you face towards the right location, equip your item again. What? Okay. Oh, from the furniture. Oh, so that's interesting. Yeah. So you'll see like a miner will equip their pickaxe straight away. But now that crafting stations have the tools built into them, you have to grab it from the piece of furniture instead there. So these are sort of mutually exclusive. And the key one is if all that works okay, they'll do this work on job action. So all these actions map to another code class behind them. And again, you should be able to add more of your own of these when you can do code modding. So the work on job action is the key one, and does all sorts of things, and it's probably too complicated. So every action has this update method that happens every frame of like we're doing stuff and how to make progress on it. For working on a job, it's basically if you're in the right position to work on the job, it spends some time pretending to do the work, I guess. You get this work done, the delta time that's passed in is like how long the last frame took, so that'll be a few milliseconds. It adds that to some total that it's keeping track of. Yeah, applying this work done to the job, and eventually, if your total work to do is less than the work that you've done, we send a message saying the job's been done, and something figures out what the hell that means. And it means lots and lots of things, you know, for which kind of job it is, and which kind of crafting it is. And something figures out, oh, you're crafting this item, so it takes the items out of the furniture that you're next to, produces a new one, and takes the inputs away, that kind of thing. So I feel like somewhere in here I'm going to have to say, oh, we're using this piece of furniture, so I then need to tell the furniture, oh, you're being used for this job now, and then it can start its own particle effect, is the thing that we're after. So I just need to remind myself, well, what on earth is going on in here? I probably shouldn't try and explain every bit of every piece of code. You can sort of see here there's some sound related stuff, that's what plays the sound for each job that's defined, so like the mining sound, the chopping and forging sounds, those kind of things. There's a whole block here now about particle effects, that if a particle effect's defined for that job type, it sends a message off which makes the particle start. And there's something which ties this up to stop those particle effects too. So I could use the same here, but I would really like to have the furniture know it's being used, and then we can add more particle effects to furniture that's being used for other reasons, which would be nice to have. So how am I going to do that? So it's like, do I know what furniture I'm working with. I think so. But I think I'll have to dig into how a crafting job, which is what this is, actually happens and gets set up. So, how would that be? I suppose it's the furniture that takes care of it. So there's as I said, there's this tag to say that a furniture has a crafting station behavior, and that's actually like an AI class which takes over the entire behavior of that piece of furniture. Otherwise, the furniture would just have AI that sort of just sits there, doesn't do anything, and just waits until, oh, I'm not in the right room that I'm supposed to be anymore, then sets itself up to get removed. But the crafting station behavior is the one that takes care of, oh, I can craft these items. So it asks a sort of production manager to go, well, what needs crafting right now? And it picks one from that list if there is something available, and you have the resources to create it. And then somewhere in here, it probably creates a job to be completed by a dwarf. Somewhere. So all the behavior classes have both an update every frame or this infrequent update. So for stuff that doesn't have to happen every single frame, of which like checking if there's crafting needs doing, or best example is like when the trees change colour. It doesn't need to be every frame because there's thousands of trees. It'd be a bit of a performance impact. So instead, this infrequent update happens maybe every 3 seconds. I'm not certain on the time. It's probably less until you have a certain number of entities on the map. But I think it might be set to like every 3 seconds at the moment. So just every so often, this thing runs. This extra time to process is that sort of processing step that gets set. So this just gets set to an amount of like, oh, you're baking bread, so you have to wait for 6 hours. And this waits that time to elapse, and also now triggers particle effects if they've been defined. If the crafting job is set, that's it, this just waits. Otherwise, does it have a production assignment? If it doesn't, checks if its inventory is clear. If it's not, it tells its inventory to be cleared out. Same for liquids. There's a lot going on. It sends a message off somewhere. We've got this publish subscribe mechanism all over the place with this message dispatcher to just get lots of things talk to each other. It's kind of a programming anti-pattern, some people might think, but that's how a lot of the game's working. So if that doesn't find anything, this just ends. But if it does, we drop into here where we figure out like allocations of items to produce whatever's being crafted here. Reach input. So where's the job get created? Don't know. What it would be in here. I'll tell you what, let's just see when crafting job gets assigned. That's the reads. These are the writes. Here we go. Here's the key bit of code I was after. Figuring out, what's in a crafting job. So there's this job class, lots of properties on it to keep track of things. You'll see a bunch of comments in the code like this of like, fix this because this should be data driven, so it's moddable. But as it is, every crafting job takes 5 seconds. So that's just a sort of placeholder for the moment. It's actually modified by your skill level, which isn't really a gameplay thing just yet, but it is there, which is a bit weird. Never mind. Okay, I guess what I was after then is if you have a crafting job, the target of it is the parent entity in this case, which is the piece of furniture. So back in our dwarfs AI for working on a job, if we have an assigned job, I think I can figure out then if the target ID is an entity that is a piece of furniture, we can tell the furniture is being used. And that's what I'm after for this task that I'm trying to figure out here. So let's say we tell the furniture that you're being used because someone's working on a job right now, somewhere in here. And I guess we would also in here have to say that we've stopped using it when this happens. This is like this completion type is each action if it ends in a failure or success for where you go on to in the goal, which is this thing, if you succeed, you go on to the pass actions. If you fail, you carry out the failure actions, like unassigning the job. So yeah, I think this will work. Yeah, let's go for this. Okay, so we've got a job. Gonna start using this optional class. Steak, welcome. Yeah, I love JetBrains stuff. This is IntelliJ because I'm using Java, but basically everything by JetBrains seems pretty good except TeamCity, which is their continuous integration pipeline type thing that I'm using in my current job now. And I hate it. I don't understand it. It's probably just that I don't understand it at this point. But otherwise, their IDEs are great. They do the ReSharper plugin or Visual Studio that a lot of people like. I don't do much C# myself. What am I doing here? I want the assigned job. So I'm just going to write a little function which will get me the target furniture, if there is one, for the job that we're working on. So I'm just basically hacking some code here now then. So if the target ID exists, let's get that first. So let's say if that's not null, let's do something. Right, do we have the game context? Is that my parent? Is that passed in? It's passed in. So this is possibly another programming antipattern that I basically have one massive object which holds like almost everything about the game, the current game that you're playing, the map and everything on it, that gets passed about in a bunch of places so you can look things up. For example, from that game context, I can get all the entities, and then I can get the one that I'm after here. And that should be the target entity, if it exists. It might not exist. It might have just been deleted, for example, even though the job still exists, something like that. So I can't be sure that's not null. So let's say that's not null, and so there's lots and lots of null checking in this code base, which isn't great. Okay. Now the key thing is I want it to be furniture. So I do have an entity type, and one of those is a furniture type. So if it exists and it's a piece of furniture, then we actually do have a target furniture. So let's do that. Otherwise, basically in every other case, we don't have a target furniture, so this thing's empty. So this optional thing is a somewhat not very recent Java convention for sort of saying this thing might be there, it might not be there. And I still don't know if I like it or not. But I'm using it now. Okay. So if I want to do this once. Okay. So if that exists, I guess every single time we're just gonna fire off some message to say it's being used. So we'll come back to that. But I kind of only want to do that once. So I'm just going to keep another Boolean flag on this thing to say that that's happened. So that's some awful name. Oh no, that'll do. So we'll only do all this if that's not being set true. And then when we do this thing, we'll set that's true. Now, so the one big gotcha with almost everything in this, in a game that you can save, is making sure everything's saved correctly. I don't know if this is good or not, but everything's basically hand cranked in King Under the Mountain, so lots of things have this write to and read from methods to write the thing to the save game file, and then you can read from it there as well. So in this case, we've got this saying if the furniture is in use. You've got a little JSON object that represents the action in this case. I'm going to stick that flag on there, and then when it gets loaded back as a save game, we can read it back in, and that makes it work between saves. Okay, so that's taken care of. I'm going to do that, make that work at some point, and then also, I guess I need to say when it's finished or interrupted, if that is such a thing. One thing that's going to be very difficult to figure out is when we have like combat and more unexpected stuff in the game, that we have this action interrupted that I need to deal with. So let's do that as well. So basically, if anything gets interrupted, it gets set to failed, but you might need to do your own tidy up as well, which I'm going to do here and here. So similar to like if the sound has been triggered, we then stop the sound. We'll say if the furniture's been told it's in use, we'll tell it that it's no longer in use. Something like that. Oh, I need this thing, don't I? But now I think I can rely on that working. Or I could just move this a bit further up. Yeah, let's do that. Alright, that should do. So, oh, that's wrong as well. Alright, so this dispatch message thing, it's another libgdx little utility. It's just a nice little publish and subscribe mechanism where these message types are actually just an integer. So behind this, it's just a number it maps to be efficient, rather than like doing loads of string evaluation or something. It's just a message gets fired for this subject and it gets some data passed along with it. And that can be anything. So in this message that I'm sending, I'm going to assume or know that it's a furniture entity every time. So I need to create these message types somewhere. So just have a big list of numbers for entity messages. So let's just put some more in here. Oh, not that. And these all have to be unique for this to work. So there's actually a test that checks they are unique somehow. There's no one. This one. Unique is in a different number each time. Okay, so if this works, then it's all just everything's just trial and error, really. It's hard to test drive game dev, I think. So I at least believe if furniture is being used for a job, it's going to fire up this message. So something needs to pick up on this message and do something with it. Do I have a furniture message handler? No. But I have a bunch of classes called like something message handler. And there's probably too much in this entity message handler. I'm going to stick it in there for now. So in the class, you subscribe to these. And then you have this massive handle message sort of callback that gets called for the messages they subscribe to. So I'm just going to stick some more of these in here. So when you get furniture in use, you're going to get an entity passed in. And these have to return a boolean true or false to say if it was actually handled or not. So I think this will always be true. So these will both look similar if it's in use or no longer in use. Right, so now I need to actually tell that piece of furniture that it's in use. How should I do that? Well, right now I only really care about crafting stations. That might not always be the case. But better not to worry about stuff that you might have in the future and change it then. So let's just worry about crafting stations. In that case, we can stick something in crafting station behavior. Can we? Does it matter? Maybe it doesn't matter. No, I have this tag. I have this tag to say when it's in use, do this thing. So maybe that's what we care about. We just look for the tag and we say, well, if it's in use and you've got a tag that says show this particle effect when in use, then that's what we'll do. That should work. Okay. I might want something to track this. Well, it does only get set once, so I guess we'll get away with it if we just do a really naive thing which just, fires it off and then stops it. It's the stopping it which is the problem. Okay. Just thinking for a moment of many ways I could do this. But I might go with a new component, unless the tag can take care of it. Actually, we're gonna need something anyway. Yeah, we're gonna need something new to store the information from the tag to say this tag adds this particle effect. So we need somewhere to keep the info of that particle effect. Yeah, we do. Okay. Okay, so these entities, they are everything, as I say, that's in the game world, like a dwarf or a tree or a piece of furniture or an item. And they're made up of components, so you might have heard of an entity component system. That's kind of what I've gone for, but it's probably not quite what it is. So every entity has a physical entity component which sort of describes what it is made out of. It's got a bunch of attributes, and it's also where the sprites are stored. It's got a location, say where it is in the world, and it's got a behavior component for the AI that it has. Juggler of Chaos, thank you for following. It's quite nice to have a stream to talk to. I don't know if I would just be talking to myself doing this. But I hope this is at least interesting to someone. Oh, we've got Zemo again. I should probably cut down on this. Steak, thank you for following. That's a clip from Falcon and the Winter Soldier, if anybody's been watching that. I'm glad it's interesting. Don't know if it's useful, but maybe it'll eventually still be useful if people want to get into the modding. That said, there's lots of code stuff going on right now. I don't expect or even really want people to have to write code, but it will be a thing you can do. You should be able to add more tags and actions, but maybe not components. So there's components that are part of an entity, and I basically have a bunch of things that I call entity components, which just then get added to whatever entity. So I just want to create now some new components to store. Oh, you're going to fire this particle effect when you're in use, and it can keep track of that for me. That would be sort of nice. So where do they live? Is this furniture specific? This isn't even the right place. Here we go, components. Yeah, is it furniture specific? I don't think it is. I don't think it is. Let's just have a really generic. No, it will be furniture specific. Let's have a furniture in use, or just furniture particle effects component. What do I call this? Yeah, no, I guess. Furniture particle effects component. Okay. Is it dependent on its parent? I don't think it is. So it's an entity component. Is it dependent on its parent? It is. It needs to know about its parent. It needs to know about the entity, so we can attach the particle effect to the entity. And I can't remember how they work, so we'll find out. It's just an interface. Right, so a component is a thing which gets initialized and needs to be stored as part of the save game if you've got any state to store, which we probably will do for this thing. Let me look at some of the other ones of these. So, Broken Dwarf is a fun one. Beer tapper is quite nice, I guess. You've got a beer tapper you can drop a barrel onto, and this thing keeps track of that. It keeps track of what state it's in, of like, oh, there's a beer barrel on the way, or available, or it's been used up, and it figures out when to move between those states, and tracks the liquid inside, and a whole bunch of stuff. It's also a furniture behavior, so that's not really what I'm after, because this is a bit more interesting, a bit more important. You know, it's one of the behavior components, which are the AI which run things. I wonder if there's a simpler one. Like this is what I'm after. Oh yeah, it gets initialized, and that's where the parent entity comes in. So when does this one get used? Well, I guess we'll work it out as we go along. Okay, so this thing's going to have a parent entity. That will be the furniture that it's attached to. So when it gets initialized, that gets set. And we might want to keep hold of the message dispatcher too. Nah, not going to do that for now. We'll see if we need it. I'll come back to this. Okay, so the whole reason for creating this is so that I can keep a list of particle effect types which come from that tag of particle effects when it's in use. So let's call it that. It can be empty list to begin with. So I think I need to write a bunch of code to make sure that gets saved as part of the save file. But I probably did something like this already yesterday for the crafting station behavior. So yeah, the crafting station behavior has these particle effects when processing, and these instances. These two things might be better off inside the new component that I'm creating. So I might move those over now from the crafting station behavior. I think. Yeah, I think I will. Okay, let's do that. Can I do with one list of particle effects? Probably. So there's a whole bunch of stuff gone red in here now because I've just moved those straight out of it. Yeah, I think that'll work. So this bit of code is saving some of them to the save file, and should be a matching bit to read them back in. It's this thing. Okay, so when we save this component, we're going to say if there's any these particle effects when processing, it creates a little array of the names, just the names, and then when we read it back from the save file, it reads those names in, finds the right ones in the dictionary, as I call it, of all the types of particle effects, and if they don't exist, the save's not valid. Like it might mean you've like modded the game and then tried to load it by the mods or something. So for now it just doesn't let you load that game. Oh, let me just check my phone. That's fine. Otherwise it puts them back in. But it doesn't store the particle effects themselves because these are really transient. It doesn't really matter if the particle effects don't come back after you load the game, I don't think, because they'll just start again. They'll just go, oh, I don't have any particle effects. So it'll just kick them off again. And that's kind of the case for particle effects all throughout. They just never save. But I do need to save what types to use, because that only really happens as the furniture gets created with the tags that are attached to it. I gave that the wrong name. It should be in use particle effect types. Okay, so I want to do the same for my in-use particle effects JSON, blah, 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 from that list, and we're going to save it as that. Yeah, why not? So I'm just going to copy and paste this bit too. It's probably quite bad how much I copy and paste in this code base, but it works. So that's going to go through those and needs to put them into that list. Nope, needs to put them into and use particle effect types. There we go. Okay, that should do for the storage. Right, let's fix this thing. Because the crafting station behavior is all broken now. Because I just lifted the data right out of it. So there's the tag, there's the I can't remember what it's called. The particle effects while in use tag. So this was written saying you have to be a crafting station behavior. But that's not the case anymore. Instead, what we're going to do is get or create our new component. Furniture particle effects component. I suppose it still wants to be furniture though, so we'll chuck that in here. Yeah. Okay, first, if the entity type is furniture, we're happy. Otherwise, we're not happy. So we'll just log out an error for now. This thing must apply to furniture, to a furniture entity. Okay. Then we'll get or create the component. Now the create, I don't know if it initializes it. That's what I wanted to figure out. So it's some quite gnarly code that makes this bit work. So I won't go into this. But yeah, it just creates a new instance of it. It doesn't initialize it. But we can do that here. So because we have the entity, we have the message dispatcher, and we have the game context. That should work. Then, for each arg, do that instead. Ignore this. Okay, so now when it applies the tag, it figures out the particle effects by the name from there and puts them in that list. That's the particle effect types. So that tag, oh, this is my while in use. Oops. Okay, fine. This probably ends up looking exactly like the other tag now. I'm going to rename this. Let's try and make it match the other name. Particle effects while processing. Particle effects when in use. Okay, a bit more consistent. Yep. And let's put that there. So I can just make all this up the first time around. But once this is released, and then there are save games that are like using these strings to store stuff, I can't change them without breaking the save, which sometimes needs to happen if things change massively. But on the whole, I try and maintain the compatibility. Okay, so now the crafting station behavior. Can swap over to use that component. So we can get that component out of the parent. Furniture, particle effects, component. Might not exist though. It only exists if you actually have that tag. Most stuff doesn't have the tag. So we'll just say only if it exists. We'll do a bunch of things. So maybe this code doesn't even need to be here anymore. But just swapping it to what it now is should make everything work, and we'll have to test that with the smelter. Yeah. And then do it there as well. Right, so that should be back to working. I would try it out now, but we still have other code that's kind of broken. That needs to go away. Where was this used? Oh yeah, the other one. Right, let's sort it out. So now this is the original tag, particle effects while processing tag, that ends up looking almost exactly the same as one I just created. So I can just paste that code in. But the getter here, instead of particle effects when in use, it's the particle effects when processing that I want to add the list to. So that should sort that out. Okay, then you're not needed. So you can go. Maybe that fixes everything. Maybe I could just test that out. But we won't do that yet. We'll carry on trying to make the new thing work, and then try and remember to test the thing that's probably broken. Oh, hello. There's a test thing which I need to sort out. This is probably already the case. Okay, that's probably all good. Right, so now we have somewhere to store the particle effect type, and so when that message comes in to say that it's in use, then we can trigger the particle effects, right? Yeah. Oops, wrong class. So I was putting it in the entity message handler. Here we go. So this bit. Right, so I have a furniture entity. It's in use. So now that I have the entity, I can try and get hold of a new component. Furniture something, particle effects component. Class, that thing. Check if it has one. And then do some stuff. Okay, so if it's started to be in use, I'm just going to fire all those effects. And if it's no longer in use, I think I will just tell it to stop any current effects. And maybe that works. So this means firing a different kind of message. A similar one that we just spotted in the crafting station behavior. Up here, basically like this. Just stick that there for now. So we're going to send a message saying I want to request a particle to be created, but this type. What type? Okay. So we get all the in-use particle effect types. That type. So for each of them, because there might be several. For this entity. Now, the key thing is what is the target? What is the... Really, it's what colour do I want this particle effect to be? Now, for furniture that's in use, I think I want it to be the colour of the items in its inventory, whatever that might be, which is a bit dodgy if there's more than one, but if there is just one, that's not too bad. So we need to do a bit more work to figure out what that is. And I can pass it into this thing. And then stick that on there, yeah. Okay. So yeah, I think I want to go off what's in the inventory, if it has an inventory. Okay, so in a very similar way, we have an inventory component that lots of things have, so we'll try and get hold of that. Might not have one. And then might be empty. So if we have one and it's not empty, then I kind of just want first thing in it. I know there will be some things in it. How do I do that? Okay, so if it exists, what I want to pass into this message is a job target, and that's probably the wrong name. It's kind of like like an effect target, just some sort of random target. It can be lots of different things. It can be a tile or an entity or a crafting recipe or all sorts of things. I don't think it should be called a job target, but let's create one. Actually, it's an optional one. So use this optional thing again. Let's call it target item. We don't have one for now. But if we get into here, then we do have one. So we can replace it. With this entity. And that entity will be an item. Except in the most horrific of situations. I know that will happen. So change this around. Yeah, that should be okay. And it'll be an item. It might be in a weird case, it might be a dwarf if this is like a grave or something, or a sarcophagus. It might be a dwarf inside, so it's not an item. It's actually a humanoid type. But let's not worry about that. We'll come to that whenever sarcophagi have effects on them. Ignore the dog. Sorry, dog. Yeah, so hopefully that gets set as a target, and then with that being the target, hopefully the colour of that thing will be applied to the particle effect through this bit of magic in here. Okay, so with a whole lot of luck, because I'm not running any of this code yet, that triggers the right effect that I'm after. And then once it should say, oh, you're no longer in use. And if you're no longer in use and you do have some instances, then we need to stop those particle effects from running. Which, again, I can just nick from here. Right. Maybe that's it. Maybe it all works. I'll be amazed if it does, but yeah, it might do. Maybe the game doesn't even run, but let's see. We're hoping we're going to see some chips flying out of the mulcher, whatever it's called. But not, are we? We're assuming everything is working. This won't work because it's only as the furniture is created that the tags are applied to it. So I need a new ore crushing station at least for this to work. So let's stick that there. Oh, that's blown up. Okay, didn't work. Oh, yes, because I put a to-do and I didn't do it. So every component has a clone method to clone the component. There's a bunch of places where entities are cloned. Not a lot, but like, say you're picking something up off the ground, it actually clones the thing off the ground into your inventory and then reduces the quantity of the thing on the ground and increases the one that you have, or changes it around. I don't think dwarves get cloned, but the furniture does too. So when you're placing furniture into the game, there's like a real instance of that furniture off the screen somewhere that it's using to draw it. There's like that sort of ghost of where you're going to place it. That's actually a real one, sort of, without AI attached to it. So there's a few edge cases need to handle there. But when you place it, I think it must be cloning it from the one that you were using to place it with. And because I didn't implement the clone on my new furniture particle effects component, it all fell over horribly. And I did leave that to do and didn't do it. Okay. So clone means we need another new one of these. Clone. I think we might need to call init, but I'm not sure actually. No, we don't. I don't think we do. Let's have a look at one of the other ones. No, not a behavior. They're a bit special. Status component, nice. Clone, not implemented. Doesn't need to be cloned because it's for a humanoid. Construct entity component's the good one. Okay, clone. Yeah, creates a clone, sets the values. Doesn't call it init, which is what I was wondering. So in the clone, we have to copy over all the types that we have. Basically, all the data in this needs to be copied to the clone. So the clone.particle effects when in use gets all of this particle effects when in use, and same for the ones when processing. I don't really care about the actual instances of the particle effects, so I'm not going to copy those over. But hopefully that fixes the last problem. Okay, remove this one. Create a new one with fingers crossed. Oh, it's placed it. That's progress. Oh dear. Well, there might be some bug there with removing it and also it having stuff inside it. So I need to look at that one. I'll say bug, something to fix, but it's not actually having an effect on the game. So I'm ignoring it for now. Otherwise, I could be doing that for the next 2 years. We have enough stuff to create it with. So we'll do this. And we should have some ore to crush, hopefully, from up here. Yeah, there's tons of it. So if you look closely, there's bits of rock flying off. There's a nice little cloud of dust as they get removed now, which I quite like. Both particle effects. Now the chipping at the rock's quite interesting because it changes the effect depending on the direction the dwarf's facing, which is kind of interesting to figure out. So they're sort of flinging upwards from that way, but from here they'll just sort of shoot down. So that works quite well. So they're attached to the dwarf. It looks like coming from the wall, and they're just offset by some amount. It adds a lot, I think. You can actually see stuff's happening, which is what all of these effects are for. Okay, so we should have some stuff to crush. This should get made. We don't actually have a lot of people here. I'm just playing the standard game with the starting 7 dwarves, but for development there is a debug mode I can switch it into, and if you start the game in that you get 20. I think, you know, it could be anything. But, where is that? Oh, okay. I'm gonna create this. That's not exactly what I wanted to happen, but we are seeing another particle effect there of these shavings flying off. That's supposed to be wood. Because why are you building it as a carpenter? I guess I'm not considered metal based furniture. So stone and wood are going to work okay. But this one, when you place it, it's just this metal category. And I haven't sorted that one out yet. So, need to figure that out. Okay, it's producing some more. Save the game there. The testing stuff is basically just... Oh, and you get to see the sparks of the forge. Now they're the one and only effect at the moment which isn't affected by the lighting. So, you know, it sort of looks like they're glowing because they're not lit up by the lighting engine like everything else is. So that's quite nice. I like that. Vic, thank you for following. Maybe tomorrow then. Nikolai, thank you for joining. I think this is going quite well. Thank you. Chat's been very quiet, but so I've just been talking about what I'm doing. If you're just joining, we have hopefully implemented a new particle effect of a bunch of chips to fly out the top of this thing as it's in use. It'll be in the wrong place, but we were just doing a bunch of code changes so that furniture can have particle effects happen when they start to be used, and hopefully stop when they stop being used, and we'll find out if that's the case. So a bunch of... Oh, I've hit a breakpoint because I've not yet implemented getting a colour for an entity. That's not right. That is not right at all. The entity. Oh no, that is right. Yeah, I just haven't implemented it yet. Okay, so there's this job target class. It is the wrong name because I'm using it now for what's the target of the particle effect that's happening. In this case, it is an entity. It is the items. That's absolutely correct. It is our ore. So perfect. You know, that's what I'm after. And then I have a method to get the main material for it out of there. How much time did I spend? Well, it's a sad story, really. I think this has been going for about 5 years, which is a very long time. But there was quite a few gaps in there. It is a hobby project basically for the moment. It's on sale on itch. We're trying to get to a Steam release, and it's basically just me. It's it's someone I recognise, but I'm not sure how to pronounce your name. Mia de Mantis. I feel like I should say people's names or at least have a go. So yeah, I started the project in, I think, 2016, but it was very slow. I got to a pre-alpha that I put on Kickstarter that was playable alongside the Kickstarter, which didn't quite work out the first time around. I went to EGX Rezzed at the same time. I think it was the same time as the original one. And that was good. It was very good to go to Rezzed. Hopefully going to go back soon. And something else, but the first Kickstarter didn't really work out. I was at Rezzed, I wasn't really running the Kickstarter. Not a great idea. Very, very, very hard to get anyone to care about video games on Kickstarter these days. The minimap. Oh, I'll come back to that. But went for a second time around on Kickstarter. Oh, actually, after the Kickstarter didn't work, my son was born. So I figured I can't try and do this at the same time as having a newborn, and that was the right decision because, yeah, that's the main reason this has taken a while. Is I've got a now 3-year-old son, which takes up a lot of time, and family and the day job and all that kind of thing. So it's just a hobby project. So it has been a long time, and it's upsetting that it's so many years and it's still basically an early alpha. But we're getting there, and I think it's a few months now from Steam. I'm hoping it's this year, but if it's not, it's early next year. And when we get to Steam, hopefully it has a bunch of sales, and then hopefully it becomes my day job, and that would be amazing. That would be a dream come true. The minimap's actually really simple. The minimap is just, I think it's just a pixel per tile. So it just picks a colour for a tile, depending on what kind of tile it is. So you can see the river, it's kind of obvious, the walls, the ground, all the ground's green, even though you've got like dirt or grass here. But it's basically a texture that it's creating with just a pixel per tile that you're seeing. The minimap doesn't scale correctly, so the minimap's actually tied to the map size. So if you have a big map, which you can do, it'll take up more real estate on the screen, which I don't want to do. I need to fix that. Let me play this. And I think it just figures out from the coordinates that you click on the minimap for where to jump the camera to, and the box is just another rectangle drawn on based on where the camera is and the zoom or something, or the bounds of the camera. So it's very straightforward as a minimap actually, but very useful to get in. But yeah, it's just a texture that it updates every, I don't know, 5 or 10 seconds or something. Doesn't refresh it every frame. So in fact, people don't notice this. But if you like draw something on the map, it won't appear here for a little bit. There you go. So yeah, the minimap doesn't update instantly. But I don't know if people have even noticed that yet. I think that works well enough. It gets there. So that's not really a performance concern too much. And it's just a texture that it keeps in memory and then renders there as part of the UI. The UI is a pain in the ass. But, I'll complain about that another time. Okay, so this job target, yeah, I've not implemented it for a bunch of things. In fact, for entities, I've only implemented it if it is a plant. So we'll implement it for if it's an item. Because each entity type has a different sort of attributes class. So you see this plant entity attributes has a bunch of plant related things like what species it is, what stage in its growth it is up to, and so on. And item has a bunch of attributes that are very item specific, like what item type it is. And they're all the entities, physical component, attributes, thing. So there's a bunch of casting that goes on. So an item entity attributes, item type, there's a size and style. Doesn't get used much, but it's like for different size logs, that kind of thing. And if it's on the ground or being held, and most importantly, what materials it's made out of. So for this method, which is like what material are you, we should be able to use that to figure it out. We should be able to say get the primary material. We've got a nice little help method for it now, which is get the material for the item type's primary material type. So it might be made of a bunch of different materials, but it might be primarily wooden or something, so that will get you the wood material. That's how these things work. So that should work now. I'm gonna stick my breakpoints back on, and because that was unimplemented, I think it just doesn't fire the particle effect. Yeah. So let's restart that and see if we see it this time. Oh, there we go. There we go. We actually have bits of rock firing out, and I think they're a decent size for what I'm after. You don't want to be too small. But the position they're firing out of is not what I want it to be. I guess I want it to be here. So let's change that. So that's part of the particle effect type we've been messing around with for a while. Particle types, this one. So that's this offset here. So the oh, you know what? Let's make this easier to see? No, I don't think it will. So like the origin point for this piece of furniture is probably the middle of this tile here. So there, about, if you can see my cursor, you can. So offsetting it by 0.5x and 1.5y, which map 2 tiles in the game, I mean it's going to be set to about here, which is what we're seeing somewhat, yeah. So instead of that, I want it to be like more to the right and down a bit. And it's not quite in the middle of the tile, is this? And you know, I'm now setting it exactly for this one piece of furniture, which isn't exactly ideal. I feel like I could do with like each furniture defining that particles get emitted from this point on the furniture. And maybe that's something I'll add if it becomes more necessary. But instead, let's just adjust this a bit. Let's go with that number. Is that too much? That's too much. And the Y, let's bring that down to middle of the tile. Yeah. All right, then we can just try that. So one of the really nice things that I've put in is we have all these mod files that you can change, but the idea is that you add your own alongside them, and then as the game starts, it scans the files. It sort of it keeps a checksum of what the original hash of the file used to be, and if it has changed, it recompiles it into a sort of combined version in assets, and that's what the game's actually running off, is the assets versions. So as I restart it here, we should see something saying that the particle effect types got like recalculated, hopefully. No, we didn't. Did that not work? Let's see if it's worked. Maybe it happened last time and I've restarted it. Ah, there you go. So is that what I want it to be? I feel like it is. Might move it down a little bit. Yeah, let's move it down just another notch. But this has been a pretty successful addition so far. Oh, and there's one of another million bugs that I could talk about where the save games don't get passed for like the first half a second or so as the game starts. So if you hit continue really quickly, it doesn't work. I don't know, yeah, I have to like disable it or something for that time. Right, I think that'll do for now. I thought it'd be quite fun if the furniture like vibrates in place a bit, but that could come another day. Now, was it the right colour? I'm not sure if it was. I might even start a new game and see if we can get something which isn't grey and has some colour to it and see if that works. But while we're here, I want to check that, yeah, the furnace still has smoke coming out of it. And hopefully in the right place now. Am I planning on making the gears turn? Well, interesting you should ask. It would need redoing at this point. No, it needs new assets, but I am introducing furniture which is animated. That's not the case yet. You know, there's nothing that's animated really. The doors are sort of animated if you have a door. That isn't yet, but yes, I would like it to be. But that's the kind of thing that is so much of a nice to have. I probably won't try and do it before the Steam release, mostly just, you know, being constrained on budget, and I'm not an artist at all, so this is all freelancers. They've done the artwork for me. So yeah, I'm introducing animation, and yeah, that's the kind of thing that definitely would be great if it was animated. But it's not right now. Yeah, I think just, you know, jiggling it around a bit would help a lot. I mean, the The particle effects are a good start because it wasn't doing anything before. The dwarves just come and stare at it, and then something happens. So to at least have those chips flying up top is a start. Alright, I want to see if someone does this. See if the smoke still works, because that's the thing we could have broken. Is that in the right place? Maybe a little bit to the left? A tiny bit? Maybe light on top of it? Yeah, yeah. We can attach light sources to things. Alright, does something happen here? And there's my smoke in the right place now, after that little change that I made. No, there's no smoke. Oh, it's disaster. I've broken the smoke. That is upsetting. Well, it's a good job we tested it. Okay, I'm gonna have to see what's going on. If I am debugging right now, so I should be able to jump straight into that code and see what's happening in this crafting station behavior we've been touching on a few times. Oh, it doesn't. Yeah, that's probably okay. So I've changed things around. It's now the tag in the JSON file, which attaches the particle effect to the fact that when it's in use, it has smoke. It isn't happening because I've made that change since using the save. So what I'm saying is, if I have a new bloomery furnace, it might work with that one. That's my theory. Hopefully. Okay, so you're harvesting that plant, so you can see little leaves flying off, and a big explosion of leaves, which is probably too big. And this is him then planting a new seed, bits of mud and stuff flying everywhere. So we know we're getting some visual effects in there. That's what this is all a bit about. Compared to them just standing around and things happening. There's a nice splash as you dump some water into one of these barrels. Unfortunately now we're at a point where it's fairly easy to add more. You know what happened today, I've had to change around a bunch of code to make this work in the way that I wanted it to. But now that that's in place, it should be a case of just, defining particle effects in this editor and then attaching them to the right place in the data files. Oh, hang on. Okay, there's your splash. Very nice. Right, I'm gonna have to wait to see if this works. Oh, and I think I'll add something for when constructions and deconstructions happen as well, like a cloud of smoke, a bit like the mining, maybe the exact same one actually for now will be quite quick and easy to do. Just add a little visual touch to that as well. This soup's never getting eaten, is it? Well, maybe it is. Maybe it's just everyone's asleep. Let's keep an eye on that. Oh, there we go. Yeah, that's good. Maybe we could add a splash as you place it down too. Just so we can get the colour of the soup somewhere. Is this okay? Yeah. Just waiting for someone to build it. That's you. So that one's sort of working as I want it to, just chips of this rock flying off as this what it was supposed to be. Sculpting it into shape. Yeah. Right, and that's hopefully going to produce some silver, and so hopefully we're going to see some smoke come out the top of it. It's nighttime again. I keep wondering if I should have shorter nights. Like if you've played Oxygen Not Included, which is just a fantastic game for the genre. I think it's possibly the best. They have a very, very brief night on the sort of daily clock thing. But overall, I'm trying to aim for a sort of simulation angle with this game. So it's a real timer and a real clock and a real day-night of, you know, when it goes light and when it goes to nighttime. Yeah, I absolutely love Oxygen Not Included. I've just got the expansion, which I've not really played yet, so I'll be giving that a go. Maybe I'll stream it. But yeah, the way that, you know, liquids, gases, solids all work together in this closed system, it's just genius. The stuff that you can build. I think what makes them very interesting, and what I need to do more of in this, is I guess it's giving you lots of ways of solving goals. Because you can build all sorts of intricate stuff that all works together in Oxygen Not Included. Not so much in King Under the Mountain yet. And then what only does superbly is every sort of problem that you solve causes more problems that you have to solve later on. And that's a really good gameplay loop, which is something I need to try and think about. Right, I need to speed this up. Going at normal speed in the middle of the night. Okay, come on dwarves, it's morning now, you can get to work. Here we go. Producing a silver bloom. Hey, there we go, back to having smoke. And I did adjust the position, so I think that's a better position now. It's a bit too much to the left. Maybe it's now too much to the right, but whatever. So there is a wind setting in the particles, which is what's gently blowing them to the right a little bit. Right now that's just sort of hard-coded into the particle system that it's just this direction by this amount. But I'll put something in that actually changes that wind amount and direction according to the weather that's in the game, which isn't implemented yet. But you know, once it is, hopefully you'll actually be able to see the wind affecting these, and that'd be quite cool. Okay, great news, that works. The chips work. That's most of what I was after. So let's put in this cloud of dust as you create or remove furniture. I think that'd be useful. Oh, and I wanted to try different colours of chips. So let's try a new game. Steel Club. Just to see if there's some like coloured ore around here. Oh, there's a big cave, that's useful. Usually spot some ore somewhere and all that. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. That's exactly what I wanted. Yeah, that's all I need. Just get that. Build a thing for it to go in. One of those. And I'll just wait for that. That should be it. Alright, come on guys. So a lot of the development is just testing individual basic bits together with each other. I don't get to do a lot of a proper settlement running for a long time. So there's a few issues there in terms of like how the game actually plays if you've got lots and lots of dwarves. Which is something I need to do. Okay. So I guess whatever happens, I want this to be red and the bits fly out. I'm putting all these effects in. I expect almost everyone just plays on maximum speed all the time, so you won't really get to see them. You know what? I need to put some tools down. Otherwise people might not have the right tool for this job and somebody else is holding it. Might not even have a blacksmith actually. No, I don't. I do have just the one. Moving some tongs around. Okay. I say blacksmith, that's not who creates this, is it? I can't even remember how to play my own game now. Here we go. So yeah, I need to sort out the metal furniture construction. Let me go and make a note of that. Right, making some crushed ore with these blocks. So here we go. It's red! Great news. Yeah, I think I'll just move it to the left just a little bit. Oh, don't know what that's about. Need to look at that one. So X. Hopefully that's saved, yeah, just before this got used. Nice. I guess it's a bit too much to the left now. This is really, really picky, but let's go for that. Okay, so I think there's just the one more thing I'll try and do today, at least in this stream. Let's try and have this dust cloud as you create or remove furniture. That'll do. Yeah, I think that's good. Okay. Okay. Let me commit those changes before I mess something up. Okay, so if I want this to just happen for all furniture, that's what we'll do. There'll be some sort of thing which handles furniture somewhere. It might be the job message handler which deals with constructions. Let's see. Right, so we have this construction completed message. So it's whatever handles that. Which would be the construction message handler. And now in each of these, they work a bit differently if it's a wall or a furniture or doorway or a bridge. Okay. I want it to apply to walls. Don't like the tapping in this music, so we'll just go to the next track. But let's look at furniture first. So what I'm really after is this bit. Every piece of furniture has multiple tile locations, at least one. That's actually just removing the construction that's in its place first. There's a bunch of stuff. So it's actually when it's created, when the game is told that a new entity has been created. I guess that adds it to the map, I think, in here. Yeah. But I don't want to put it there. Like here, where we're dealing with what happens when, yeah, furniture construction is completed, that something happens. So I guess in this loop of each location, when we do something, that would be the place to trigger this particle effect. So maybe I can just drop it in here. Now I already do something basically the same as what I want for the when the walls are removed. So I want to go and steal that. That's this dust cloud particle effect, and I think I'll just use the same one rather than create something new for this. Yeah, we've got a wall removed particle effect in 2 places. And as you can see from my comment, this is kind of hard coded in right now. I need to extract this to be moddable in some way. Probably just some sort of file that says there's like a bunch of different default particle effects that apply to certain situations like this one. But while I'm figuring stuff out, while I'm implementing it the first time around, I tend to just hard code it in and stick this comment in to then loop back to it later and expose it for mods. There's actually tons of these that are left in, but at some point I can just do a big search for these and sort them all out. So that is used for this. So we can do something similar. We can say I want a particle, this dust cloud particle effect, whatever that is. Now in this case it is attached to an entity, but not really. So I've mostly written these to work based on either being attached to an entity or being attached to a tile. Now in this case, this sort of, they're related to an entity. That's kind of target. Is it? No, maybe I can just stick it on the tile. Yeah, I don't think the color matters. So let's do this. You might get like a green or brown puff of smoke, maybe, if that's what color the ground is. Maybe green, maybe grey, depending on if it's stone or something. But that's probably fine, right? Maybe? Let's go with that. So again, I'm going to have to hard code this in, a bit like the sounds are as well. Oh, so much like that one. Dust cloud, yep. Oh, we can see how that works, if that works. You know what would speed this up is if I switch it into dev mode, and then I can have more settlers at the start. Yes, that's cheating. That's where game cheats come from. Okay, lots of settlers. This should be quite simple. Should just be able to put some furniture down, and I'm wondering what colour it's going to come out. Come on guys, what's going on? Oh, there's no tools. I don't remember how to play this game. I should probably start with like the tools in a chest or something at the start, but we don't have chests as containers just yet. Okay, oh, they're both happening. They're both happening. Okay, let's watch closer then. So is this grey and is this green? That's alright. This is probably gonna be green, isn't it? Yeah. I know what we'll do. So rather than making this really complicated, we can just have a new particle effect. And also part of the problem that we saw there, I'll just do it again so you can see what I'm about to talk about. Also, now we're in dev mode, we can zoom a lot closer. Need to fix that. Right, so if we watch this one closely, as this gets completed, there's like 2 layers of the cloud of smoke, but the sort of top layer gets sort of halfway through the table because of the sort of ordering of stuff that is farther back, because it's like behind this sort of level. It's, you know, it's this tile which is like behind the tile. So yeah, the upper cloud of smoke is coming behind the table, whereas the one at the front is kind of working. So rather than do something really clever, I'm just going to create a new particle effect which says it's always on top and it's always a certain colour. That would work. In fact, yeah. So that should be quite easy actually. I can just copy this one. Don't want to rename that because I'm already using it in a few places. Let's give this a different name. So this is Dust Cloud. Above, I don't know, that's terrible. That is terrible. It's still affected by lighting, but it doesn't use the target colour, so we use the colour of the particle effect, which is probably grey, but I can't remember what it is. But I have another setting that I can put on these things, depending on what's in particle effect type. Override Y depth. True, which will sort of change up how it gets rendered, and it will draw it after everything else, so it will just go on top. That should do. Then I can just use that one instead. So we get to reuse the same P file. Not that it matters too much, you know, it doesn't matter if you have lots of these. Construction message handler. Is this where I put it? Yeah, this one. Okay. So now that should solve that issue for us, but it also solves the colour problem, I think. If everything's grey as you make furniture, I think that's sort of okay, or we could pick a different colour, but I don't want it to be based on the colour of the ground. It could be based on the colour of the furniture, but that would need me to have a new way of like defining where particle effects are happening and who are they happening for, compared to what I currently have. Maybe that means, oh, that's quite nice. Let's see how this one looks. Yeah, it's sort of okay. Maybe I should make it bigger. Let's make it bigger. I think a big old cloud of smoke happening as you build something makes sense. change the colour to something else. Yeah, I think that... Yeah, it could be improved, but I think it'll do. Okay, so I need that for the other construction types, but I also need it when deconstructing. So I'll have a look at that now. I won't be surprised if that's done in construction message handler. Deconstruct bridge, no. No, okay. Where does that happen? Okay, we'll come back to that. Let's do wall constructions and bridge constructions. So now for this. Okay, so when you build a wall, which only happens one tile at a time. So there's just a check in here. If there already is a wall, it doesn't happen. But otherwise, I guess if you get to here, it's happened. So I'll just throw that in there. Done. That was easy. And bridges are similar again. They have lots of locations. Yeah. So we'll stick that there for those tiles. And doors should work the same as furniture. So let's just try those out. Oh, it's so far to the bridge. Alright, let's have some walls. The wall isn't getting a bunch of chips either. Well, that's the walls working. Now the doors, you're going to see a kind of horrible visual effect here because we have somewhat new wall sprites. This dwarf's a bit stuck. But like the adjoining sprites for the doors need different versions for different wall types. So I'm going to ask the artist who did these walls to do that very soon. But I've not brought it up yet. I think that's right. Yeah. Hey, no sound. So yeah, that looks terrible. That's because that's the old stone walls. Not even the current stone walls, it's the old ones. But the doors never got redone because they're a massive pain in the arse. So that needs fixing. Okay, let's do a bridge. There. Okay. Only just got enough planks for that. It's going to take a while. This is why we have 20 dwarves instead. Hey, there we go. I suppose it could do with saying like what's allocated, but what's actually arrived as well. Big old sleepover happening here. I'm pretty confident this is going to work okay though. Okay. Are you making that? No. No, you're just eating. Okay, come on dwarves. Oh, there's still some more wood to arrive yet. So in dev mode you see some extra stuff like all this. And there's like a million different like debug options I can put on to show stuff. So like you see all the edges of the river have these different coloured blocks, they're different zones. Zones are like one of the ways, or the only way you can, that I made for how you can retrieve a liquid from somewhere. So they're zones, they go around cauldrons too. The fun ones are there's like something which shows jobs for a certain colour. So if I mine this out, this colouring shows me these are accessible jobs. These are inaccessible jobs. And then as they get assigned, they turn blue. But that doesn't matter too much because they flash, so the player can see those. But the really cool one is if you have a stockpile that's going to get used, like that, you can see the hauling jobs as the lines of where they're going, and the blue is when they're assigned. So that's what was happening there, going from green. Because there's lots to figure out in these games of like if something becomes inaccessible or the map changes, or the tricky thing that I've not quite figured out yet is if you have like a second area and you have some stuff in there and they want to go between the two. I know about I can figure out the pathfinding and they can know that you can't get there, but that's mostly sorted if it's a separate area, like the bridge, which is done by zones, which just changed now, the regions rather. The region is 8 and this region is the same across both now. But if we had an indoor area, that's not going to do anything, is it? I just broken the game. I just created just created a barrel on there, but okay. It should be able to reveal an area as well, if there is a cave there. There we go. Like this will be a different region, so that's region 44. So if you know you're trying to pathfind it from region 8, you can't get to a different numbered region. Anyway, the bridge worked. Managed to pause it just at the right time. Hey, there's the bridge. I think that'll do. So it's just deconstructing stuff I need to figure out. And that's probably it. So, good time for any questions, if anyone has them. Always happy to answer questions and go off on a massive tangent into something. How does deconstructing work? Well, I have this terrible big class called Job Message Handler that deals with when a job is completed, what happens. Now each of these things that happens when a job is completed should probably be like a separate class, and then you could be able to mod in your own. As things stand, you wouldn't be able to add in what happens when you do a completely new job type. So I need to change that. Oh, and here's deconstruct, that's handy. In fact, it's just in line there, isn't it? So so what I'm interested in is, in all these cases, you're a wall. No, it's both these cases. You've got the wall and doorway. Or you might be a bridge or a piece of furniture. So I have a big deconstruct furniture method here or somewhere. I have messages for deconstruct door, deconstruct bridge, and removing wall. Now removing wall probably already works actually. That's so it should be kind of the same as mining a wall. So let me just try that out. Because we have a wall here. It's very counterintuitive that you have to mine a wall that you've created, but maybe you can demolish it now? Yes. So that's not quite as confusing. You can do both. Because it's actually the same thing. Okay, and yeah, that already works because it is basically mining the wall out, and this should be the same, I think, if that deconstruct works. And the moment the door just removes itself. So maybe I should get the door to do something, but I'm not going to worry about that one today. Okay, so the wall works already. That's taken care of. Deconstruct door. When we make that work, maybe that'll work for the thing we just looked at, so let's do that next. Deconstruct door. So as with a bunch of places, I'm just going to have to add the exact same thing in here. This, there, that, for, yeah, the tile. Don't do anything with it. So it's all a little bit hacky, the way I'm just throwing all this stuff in there. Oh, that's not right. There we go. But as I've said, there's this comment, because I need to come back in and sort this out. Like lift all these hard-coded particle effects out to a sort of configurable file somewhere to say like what's the default deconstruct particle effect, and then you could change it. But also it's not hard-coded because that just feels wrong. Okay, so that should take care of deconstructing a door. Bridge. Deconstruct bridge. Bridge locations. Get a tile. So deconstructing a bridge is actually quite complicated because you need to then split the two sides into two different regions if there are no other bridges around to make that pathfinding trick work. So there's a lot going on. We're in the construction message handler still, so I still have that particle effect around. That's handy. Okay, and finally, where was I? Here we are. Deconstruct furniture. This is a static method. It must be used in a few different places. And it's this target positions that I'm after. Yeah, I need to put it there. Oops. So I need to actually pass this in. Let's rename it. It's now the deconstruct particle effect. Okay, so this is called in a couple of places, and each of those I need to pass it in now. Let's call it that actually. That's that one. And one here too. What has happened there? How's it got that one? It's a bit weird. Why don't I have that now? Deconstruct. Particle effect. What did I just do? Deconstruct. Oh, maybe I didn't create it. Okay, okay. Is that it? Is that every way of is that every deconstruction? I think so. So we've checked walls. Just need to check doorways, bridges, and furniture. Okay. And then we'll be done. Right. Nice. Oh, hang on. That was a different dust cloud. I guess it doesn't matter. Well, it does matter, but hang on a second. The wall. Oh yeah, the wall one's already implemented, but the wall one does use the color. That's okay. That's okay. Okay. Right, let's remove this. And that while we're at it. Nope. Nearly missed it. Or I did kind of miss it, but I did see it work. Build another one to come back to. Version of a bridge soon. Sort of weird side effect from the number of resources and tiles involved. It takes ages to build a bridge. That's probably okay. So let's remove it. Oh, you're going to be in trouble if you're going to remove it from that side. Yeah, that's not a good idea. Especially you. Oh, she just made it. There is an interesting way you can actually land in the river and you get swept down river if that happens. Which you very rarely see. There's the dust cloud, so that's nice. And let's get rid of it. There is someone coming to work on this. You? Yes. Okay, I guess that worked. It looks a bit weird. Oh, I saved it. Good job. Yeah, I guess that's fine. It's just, I think it looks a bit weird because it's nighttime. The lighting, yeah. Yeah, the lighting makes the dust cloud look a bit weird, but I think that's fine. Now you can sort of see the edges of the clouds. But I'm alright with that. Yeah. Nice. Do a sound effect too. But okay. I'll just check my notes. That's probably it for today. There is a couple more particle effects I want to add. I want to add something for the milling flour, but we can make use of what we did for the ore crusher for that one. And maybe malting when you're doing brewing beer. From barley is the malt, I think. And maybe something for food preparation too. But that's about it. We covered off everything else. Which is great because I started the particle effects back in December or something. Ugh, that's been out forever with the little amount of time that I've had. Okay. Okay, I'm just going to end the stream there. I don't know anybody else who streams game development, so I'm not going to raid anyone. So if you haven't already, I'll drop a link to the Discord channel in case you are not in the Discord channel. I guess that will do. If you want to follow what's going on with the game development, again, Sorry it's been so slow. Sorry it's been absolutely ages since the last update. But we are back on track now. And yeah, thanks, absolutely. Thank you so much to everybody who's come and followed along, asked questions, been involved. It's been really good to be able to do this. I don't usually have the quiet house to get 2.5 hours, but today was a bit of a special case. Tomorrow might be as well, so we'll see. That'll be nice. And yeah, thanks for watching the stream. So hopefully I'll see you next time. Bye now.